you trying to seem like you're perfect is what's going to alienate people.
On today's episode, Courtney and I have the pleasure of sitting down with Lynn Smith. Lynn is the former news anchor for NBC News, MSNBC, and CNN Headline News, and she is the best at taking you from the best kept secret to a go-to media expert or world-class communicator, and that's exactly what we dive into. What can you do today to become the best you can be in front of a camera, in a virtual space, and why it is so critical to you and your business moving forward? With that being said, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Michael and Courtney Weaver, and we have a special guest with us today, Lynn Smith. Lynn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm excited, you guys. This is going to be fun.
I am super pumped about today. So you're a former host of NBC, CNN, MSNBC. I don't know if that sounds familiar to anybody else, but that's a pretty big deal, all right? Those are pretty well known. So
it sounds more glamorous than it is. Yeah, lots of early hours. So if you watched me back in like 2011, it was at 4 o'clock in the morning with Early Today on NBC. So yeah, I'm happily now an entrepreneur.
No.
Okay. And I say recovering WTF.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So when is that your start time, or what time did you have to get up?
Yeah, so when I hosted Early Today, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I went into work at 10 o'clock at night. I covered breaking news overnight for MSNBC. I actually covered the Japan tsunami because it was in the middle of the night. It happened live on air on MSNBC about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm the only one in the studio. So, I mean, that's why we do it, right? You're able to have a front seat where normally you've got like Brian Williams who'd take over. And, it was an amazing 3 years where I got such great experience. And then I moved to Atlanta where I spent, 8 years at CNN's Headline News. And now I'm excited to start a new adventure. And it's been about 2 years since I launched my company.
Heck yes.
So your company, talk to us a little bit about that, that transition and who you actually serve and what you're helping them with.
Yeah. And so I felt like I could reverse engineer this skill set, right? Like I talked into glass for 15 years and made it sound like I was having a conversation with you. I'm like, that's got to be valuable, right? So I realized, especially in COVID, all of us, all of a sudden, were doing the same. And it didn't feel natural. And I realized it's because it was a skill that I had to develop over 15 years. It isn't natural. And there are techniques to do that. So I designed a training program called the Green Room for media training and the Boardroom for corporate communications. And it really was to elevate executives, CEOs, startups, anyone that has a message to share, and help them to talk in sound bites so that they were clear and concise, so that they got right to the point. They hooked me within 3 seconds, and then they gave me something meaty within 30 seconds, and then they buttoned it up so they don't ramble on. And so it's been really fun for me to delve into this entrepreneurial space. That's new to me, but in the same time, I'm able to use my skill set.
I love this because this is exactly what I was hoping we would talk about. Because so many entrepreneurs and business owners, like in the world we live in today, I truly believe that if you can get on camera, it can be transformational for your business. And so for someone right now that's like, this is all fine and dandy, but how do I even get started? So that's what I would like to ask you. Like, what do you recommend for people to even get started?
Yeah. And you make a great point, because if you're as seen on, right, it's like that good housekeeping seal of approval. There's so many people out there that do the same thing. So how is it that I can cut through so that somebody says, oh, you must be credible. You've been on CNN, right? The same thing you started this podcast with. You started out with my credentials, because that's the credibility and how to earn trust. And so if you really want to break into this, you have to start really developing your own personal brand story. So people don't buy into products. They buy into the story behind the product. And so if you don't have that, I'd say that is the number one place to start. And then you've got to start looking internally and digging into yourself so that you can show up as that shining voice of your message. And that takes some work, you know? I mean, I coach billion-dollar company leaders to the startup CEO, and they all have the same pain point. It's overcoming that voice in your head. I call it your brain bully. That voice in your head of like, are they going to think this sounds smart? Are they going to think I'm good enough? I hate the word imposter syndrome because it totally is overused, but brain bully is like we are sabotaging ourselves by letting this voice control the narrative. And so I wanted to develop the techniques because I saw how prevalent it was with everyone. I'm like, these are wildly successful people. Why are they having this brain bully that I had to ask the right questions to even find out that they had? And so I really think that finding the right coach, and sometimes you have to be your own coach, to pull that out of you. Like, what are you afraid of? What do you feel like your weaknesses are? Because our weaknesses are what we think hold us back. Our fears are what actually hold us back. It stops us from doing the thing. And so doing some of that internal hard work, I know that sounds like kumbaya and I'm going to start burning like sage or something, but I'm telling you, it works. I've seen it time and time again, but you have to face it. You have to say it out loud.
Okay, so I love your weaknesses is what we think hold us back and fear is what actually holds us back. So I'm listening to this and automatically like voices come up, even preparing for this podcast, you know, putting yourself out there. How do I differentiate between what is a weakness and what's actually fear?
So if I were to ask you the question, like when you started this podcast, what were you afraid of? What scared you about starting it?
I think when I'm talking to you, you have like this resume and these credentials. And I think my immediate voice that comes up is I want to do a good job. And I don't know if that's to impress you or to show that I'm credible or that I'm confident and competent. So that would be my fear. Now, is that a weakness or a fear? I don't know.
It's a fear. It's more of a fear. A weakness, like, for example, my biggest weakness is public speaking, which everybody thinks is hysterical. I think it's terrifying. Like, they're like, this is what you do for a living. I'm like, no. I'm in a studio by myself with my glass. I'm not staring at people's faces. And y'all, when you are in a room, when somebody's speaking, smile, look at them and give them reassurances. Like, you want me in the front row of your talk because I'm always there. Like, I got you, boo. Like, I am cheering you on. Because people are looking at you and they're just like, you know, they're giving you that stink eye. So my weakness, I thought, was public speaking, but I decided to overcome it by learning the skill sets that I need in order to do so. So I faced my weaknesses and turned it into a superpower. I'm a keynote speaker now. A fear is I'm really going to bomb on stage again. I wrote an ebook called Confidence Quotient, and I open it with a keynote that I was giving right out of leaving my job 2 years ago as a news anchor. And I totally spiraled and I couldn't get words out. And I just stopped myself and I said to everyone, I'm so sorry, I'm failing. This is exactly what I was afraid of. And I said, I'm going to pivot and just change to Q&A. And I got through it. But what it showed me was even when the worst thing happens to you, you can still overcome it. So when you're afraid of all of those things that you say, am I going to seem credible? It doesn't matter. Because either way, if you just keep going, which if you follow me on Instagram, it's my mantra. I have a children's book that's going to be coming out in this realm of just keep going. If you just keep going, it doesn't matter if the worst case scenario happens. And it comes to the way I've come to understand confidence, because I really needed to spend time figuring out why we all have this. Like, what you're afraid of, Courtney, is no different than what I'm afraid of, what everybody on the planet. If you're not, then I hate to say this, but I think probably you're a narcissist. Like, if you think you're probably psycho. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just been so prevalent. I had to dig deeper into what is this about. And so I started to say, what's the difference between confidence and arrogance? And I realized, arrogance is thinking that you're good at everything. Confidence is knowing you can do anything despite any circumstance. If you fail, if you succeed, if it doesn't work out, that's confidence. And I was like, why do people struggle with confidence? And I realized, well, many times we're seeking for our validation externally, right? I heard you, Courtney, say, I'm wanting you to think I'm doing a good job. Mm-hmm. We're seeking validation externally. When we seek only validation internally is when we will find that confidence that is the differentiator from other people. Like, people will watch my videos in my program. They're like, I just don't know what it is. Like, there's just like this ease. And I'm like, it's because I've given up on that feeling of like, are they going to like this video? And there's going to be people who are not going to. But that internal peace comes across on camera. And it's a hard concept for people to get their head around, because it sort of is against everything we've ever done, as humans.
Yep.
But I would encourage everyone to just like start practicing it and see how different you show up, not just on video.
So I was actually going to dive into that a little bit. Do you believe that comes with reps? Because I feel like, personally speaking, for someone that's tried to show up on camera the last 4 or 5 years, there has been an evolution of trying to show up perfect and trying to show up to where it's a good message and people will like me, to where now I believe I'm much more authentic and I've tried to be, but I think it's come with reps. Like, what do you see in working with folks? Like, can you just automatically be authentic and not care? Or is it going to come with reps and confidence in front of the camera?
I think that there is a certain it factor that some people do have, and I see it. I have 2 clients in particular. I've worked with them for the last 2 years, literally since I started, and you'll see them on my website, Jason Greer and Jessica Kriegel. And while I did my first mock interview with Jason and Jessica, and you'd be like, wow, there's a lot of work to do. Now they're on camera and like they're on CNN and CNBC and all of this. And they're just like, oh yeah, Jessica Kriegel's kind of a household name. We see her on CNN like twice a month. And so I knew from the very first time that I sat with them, there's like this it factor of the combination between charisma and the sort of inherent confidence that somebody has. And I think it is rare. I think that there is a certain, it's why, not everybody ends up hosting the Today Show, right? Like, there's just a very small number of people that have that gift of Hoda Kotb. Like, she's just truly, like, you don't train that. For everybody that is struggling and feeling what you felt when you first started, you hit the nail on the head. You wanted it to be perfect. And anytime you want something to be perfect, it's always going to disappoint, because it's not possible, right?
Yep.
We'll fail 100% of the time. And you also wanted to make sure the message was good, rather than knowing what your expertise is and knowing how valuable that is. Internal validation. And so, yes, of course, reps always help. Jason, 2 years later, he's now, we still do coaching calls. We still work on the brain bully. So it's not something that happens overnight, but you see an evolution of like, wait, what changed? Because I had this conversation actually with Jessica. She was on CNN last Friday, and I was like, okay, I feel like we've hit it, and I want to know what's changed. And she finally got out of her own head. After all those media appearances, she finally got out of her head, and she just goes. She just shows up and she talks. And the best media appearance is when I call you afterwards and say, how does that feel? How did that feel? Mm-hmm. And it's when somebody says, I don't know, was it good? I blacked out. Then I say, yeah, it was the best one you've had yet, because you weren't thinking, wait, did that come out right? Oh, I just stumbled over that word. Oh, this is so pain. You aren't having those thoughts, the brain bully that comes across on your face all the time.
And what you just said is actually super powerful, because it's getting out of your head and how did it feel?
Yes.
Can I unpack that for a little bit, though? Because I think there's a level of vulnerability that comes with that. And I think there's a level of transparency. Now, how vulnerable do we get to be at that? I don't want to say like, forget it, I don't care what anyone thinks, but that process of being accepting and okay with the outcome regardless of the performance. I mean, is there, even hearing you talk about, blacking out and it being such a body feeling that feels so vulnerable and exposed?
Yeah. Well, and I think we're all realizing, right? Brene Brown was the pioneer of this. This is how we as humans connect. It's not when you see my Instagram and I look like I have a perfect family, perfect life. That's not when we connect. We connect when I'm a hot mess working mom that during the school year never remembers anything. And I have friends that know this about me. So they're like, you know when the start of school is, right? And I'm like, I don't. When is it? And they're like, it's coming up. And I'm like, oh. That's when we connect, because we're all just trying to do, at least if we're coming from the same place, right? Like all of us are as business owners. We want to be doing something that's impactful. We want to be influencing. We want to be doing something that's moving things in a positive direction. As long as we're coming from that place, let's all just let that vulnerability be our connection. Yeah. And that doesn't mean, some people take that to the Kardashian level where they're like crying in Instagram stories. And it's like, okay, there's vulnerable and then there's just, that's not good for the brand, honey. Yeah. No, let's try and
pull her back.
Let's bring that back.
Pull her back just a second.
Just a little bit. I say this to CEOs all the time. You trying to seem like you're perfect is what's going to alienate people. When you show up to that call and you're like, guys, I'm going to own this. This was my bad call. And I've done this to my team. Guys, I made a bad call, and it's a lesson to all of us that you own up to it. And I don't expect any of you guys to be perfect. And when I make a bad call, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm never going to do it again. But no one's expected to be perfect here. That's leadership. That is what makes a good leader, is when you allow yourself to be like, I screwed up. Because who doesn't?
Absolutely. All right. So I want to dive into, because I opened it with, I think that if you get on camera, it can be transformational for your business as the leader, as the business owner, the entrepreneur. I would love your take, maybe some data on this. Why do you believe, or maybe not all business owners should, but for those that do want to get on camera, they're just hesitating, why would you encourage them to take that next leap, take that step, and start getting on camera?
I would say if you don't, you'll be extinct, right? I think this was starting to be true even before 2020. Now, if you can't close a sale through Zoom, you aren't going to be able to survive. If you aren't able to generate leads through video, TikTok, Instagram, whatever your poison of choice is, if you can't become somebody that people connect to, which is now happening on video, right? How many times are we meeting up with potential leads for a coffee? It's just not happening. So there has to be some sort of acceptance of this is our new reality. And instead of looking at it as like, oh, I don't want to have to do this. This is I feel so uncomfortable. I would try and reverse that mindset and be like, how many times in your career are you given a challenge where you're able to really say, I could gain a new skill set, especially for many of us who have had a successful career. Like, there's very few things. It's not like we're going to go back to college. We're not going to go back and learn something new. But how many times do you have an opportunity to say, not only is this going to make me better in my business, but this is going to make me a better communicator in my life. I have clients that say to me, my wife is telling me I talk in sound bites. And I was like, well, are you making more sense now? Are you easier to understand? I have not media trained my own husband. I need to start thinking about doing that. But if you start doing this in your life, you start talking in a clear and concise way, and people are like, I am attracted to that person. I need to know more of what this person has to say. So video is the new boardroom, whether we want to accept it or not.
I like it. You don't have to wear pants. I think it's great.
I totally agree. I'll stand up here. I'm wearing cutoff shorts.
Oh, yeah.
I totally love it.
Mullet outfit every day.
This
Let's
is
go.
Great. Oh, man. Yeah.
Live it up.
I'm a big fan. And just to your point of you don't have to go back to college and learn a new skill set. Thank God my liver would not survive round 2.
I was going to say the same thing. There's no way.
There's no way.
And there's social media, so there's evidence of
That's
our
right.
livers not surviving it. That's the only thing that saved me in college, is that Facebook didn't exist.
No, it's a digital camera. I'm like, thank God there wasn't TikTok.
I don't even have the charger to charge to find out what pictures are on.
Yeah,
Yes.
you take them to Walmart or wherever, and you get them 6 months later, and you're like, "What was this? What's happening?"
Totally.
So, I could do this all day. I could have this conversation about no pants and liver all day long. So, let's get into your message. You talk about knowing your message. You talk about speaking in sound bites. What goes into this sound bite? What is some information as a business owner that you would say, okay, this is what you would include, and this is the Kardashian crying in the story. Don't put that in your message.
Yeah. Well, first, I think the most important thing in your message is the problem that you solve. You know, what is the impact? What is that solution-based message? Because right now, that's what we're all in need of, right? I mean, my business is based on the problem that people feel uncomfortable on camera. And the solution is having the methodology to understand that it's not something that's insurmountable. So that's the number one piece of it, is what problem do you solve? And I think Sarah Blakely, she said this about Spanx and why it was what it was. And she's like, I just solved the problem that you can't wear underwear and white pants. And I was like, yeah, that's it. I mean, it's $1 billion business from that one solving of a problem. So don't think your problem is small. It can be $1 billion idea. And then as far as speaking in sound bites, I have a formula for that. And it's called hook, meet, chill. So I alluded to it in the beginning of our conversation, but you have 3 seconds to get someone to like you. Literally. Like once that 3 seconds is up, they've already determined how they feel about you. You have 30 seconds to get someone to trust you. So you want within the first 30 seconds for something to be really impactful. And then you want to button it up so you don't lose them. So that's what a soundbite is. A hook within 3 seconds. Meet, something meaty in 30 seconds. And then chill, like chill factor that goes down the back of your neck of like, ooh, that was good, right? So if you can hook, meet, chill, all of your talking points. And I encourage experts every time they go into a media appearance, think about 4 talking points that and we talk about in my program, how to develop those talking points. But those are the 4 things that are going to keep you in a box. Like we're not, what are they going to ask me? We're not, you are clear on the 3 or 4 takeaways that you really want the audience to have. And this gives you that crutch. Say they ask you a question that just doesn't make sense altogether, which I've been guilty of as a news anchor. I mean, we've got people in our ear talking to us being like, we're going to breaking news, live aerial shot of this, and I have to ask a question of an expert. And instead of being like, I don't understand what you asked, you say, you know, we need to look at that. But what I really want people to take away from this is, and you insert one of those meaty talking points. And so getting clarity on what that messaging is and those talking points and what you want people to take away. And I say 3 to 4 because 3 is that sweet spot. It's hard for people to take in more than 3, but if you've got that last one, it's always good to have just in case. But really clarity of that message is so essential when it comes to the soundbite.
I'm leaning.
And now all my clients laugh because they have like the cook, meet, chill emoji that they'll send to me during media appearances, like the little hook and then the meat and then the chill. And I'm like, yes, I need to like trademark this on a t-shirt or something. Hook, meet, chill.
Please, let's get some merch flying around here. We'll shoot it out of the guns.
Merch.
Yeah.
I love it.
Those t-shirt guns like at stadiums, like when they are on TV, we'll just start like poof, poof, poof.
Sold.
I am having so much fun with this conversation, and I love it because I think it can be an intimidating thing to get on camera and even to interact or have a conversation with someone. I mean, like our conversation, like you're on TV, you're a news anchor, and being able to understand like we're all going through this together. So on a personal level, what is something that you do to continue to sharpen your skills on camera and as a coach?
Yeah, I think it's continuing to take risks. It's continuing to be fearful of decisions that I make. It was a huge risk to leave my job. I had 2 years left of a secure contract. All the great things about a contract, right? Like health benefits, all those details. And I just took a risk. And I had a lot of fears associated with it. And I find that every time I'm scared and every time I'm taking those risks, I'm up-leveling. Like I'm getting better even when it doesn't work out the way that I want it to. And if I can feel like I'm continuing to up-level, like I would not have had this conversation 2 years ago because I didn't understand confidence in the way they understand it now, because I hadn't worked with these people who are so successful and I couldn't understand why they had these struggles. And so I really had to look at myself and say, like, am I confident? Can I push myself through those fears and the risks? And if I can't, then I'm not the right person to come to. And so I just want to continuously make that my focus. And when I do, I feel more and more comfortable in my own skin. Because you should be scared a lot of times. You should be scared of what you do, or else it's not big enough.
You crushed it, Lynn. I mean, what's the old saying? Like the most growth comes in the most uncomfortable stages of life.
Yes.
And I love that. Lynn, if somebody wanted to follow you, connect with you, support you, maybe purchase one of your courses, how should they go about doing that?
Oh, thanks. Well, you guys were awesome too. You killed it, Courtney. All those thoughts in your brain bully, wash them away, girl. You got it.
She's a savage, man.
She is. Name her. I have people name their brain bully. Mine is actually named Bob because my son got a fish for Christmas and named him Bob. And I was like, that's hysterical. So every time my brain bully comes up, I was like, hey, Bob. And I just start laughing.
That's my dad's name, so I can't do that.
Oh, is it really? It's hysterical. No, but find someone. Like, name your brain bully. That's the last piece of advice I'll give. Okay, so you can go to my website. It's lynnsmithtv.com, and I am on all the socials at lynnsmithtv.
Lynn, I love this so much.
This has been fantastic, Lynn. Like
you guys, I've had a great time.
So many freaking golden nuggets. Like hook, meet, chill. Let's
I know.
go.
Now I'm thinking about all the neck tickles. I'm like, let's freaking go. This can go sideways.
Let's go.
But Lynn, we appreciate you. We appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure. So, and for all of those of you that are listening, thank you so much for your time, for your support. As always, time is the most valuable and important asset that we all have. We appreciate you spending time with us. Go out and make it great.